What's going on, everyone? Jack here from Mapchrome, and today I want to talk about these two drones. They look pretty similar. They have a lot in common, but they're actually really pretty different. This is the DJI NEO, and it is $199, and this is the Beta FPV Meteor75 Pro with DJI's 04, also $199. So for $200, you can get either one of these drones, but it's going to cost you more than that to get either one in the air. And while they look similar, they're actually pretty darn different, and I think they serve different purposes for different people. So let's learn about both of these things and figure out which one maybe is the better drone for you. Specifically, we're going to put on some FPV goggles and see how they compare. So let's start by talking about the design there. Both ducted drones, meaning the propellers are in case, and that makes them a little bit safer, sometimes a little bit quieter, and also a little bit more stable in most cases. Now, it's nice because as you're flying, if you're a beginner, you can kind of fly with these ducks and they protect your fingers, right? They protect from bumping into obstacles. You can kind of bump off of things. The propellers don't get stuck. And that's a really nice design for a beginner. The drawback is, well, they catch the wind, so they're not great for flying in heavy winds. Neither one of these are. Now, the next thing you'll note, they're both pretty small. Well, this one being a whole lot smaller, and this is a tiny whoop. That's what it's called. It's made for flying in tight spaces and even indoors. Now, they make them a lot smaller than this, but I chose this one because it's kind of like the smallest one with the best video camera that really has some of those tiny whoop characteristics that we really love. You can get a little bit smaller than this, but I think this is kind of the sweet spot for tiny whooping with DJI 04, which is the best video system, the best camera that you can get on one of these little things. Now, you can get a little bit bigger, get the DJI 04 Pro, but that's maybe even a better comparison to this, and I'll probably do that video also. So if that's something you want to see, click that subscribe button, and I'll get to that later. But today I want to talk about this because it's more of a traditional tiny whoop and see if this NEO can kind of replace it in some of the ways you'd probably want to. Now, this is great for flying inside, flying around people, getting in tight spaces. That is really what this excels for. I love flying this in my basement. I got a couple of hoops. I'll put it up. I'll fly around the ping pong table. I take this over to my parents' house. I was chasing my nephew around on roller skates. They had an Easter egg hunt. I took it outside and flew around the kids. We flew around the house. You can fly a tiny whoop like this around people if you're a good pilot and get away with it. I probably wouldn't do that with this. It's just a little bit too big, a little bit too noisy, and a little bit too heavy. This guy here, the Meteor 04, the Meteor75 04 Pro, I should say, is about 50 grams with a battery. That's a whole lot lighter than the NEO, which is about 130, 135, I think, with a battery. So, almost 3 times as heavy. Now, it's also a lot louder, and you can fly it just like a tiny whoop, meaning you got a set of goggles. These are my DJI Goggles 3. If you have a newer set of DJI goggles like these, you can fly either one of them, right? So I was flying both of these drones on these goggles here. Now, my NEO, I had to fly with this. This is my DJI FPV remote. I think it's the FPV remote 2, remote 3. And I could have flown the Beta FPV, but I have a nice Radio Master. So, this is kind of more a traditional hobbyist kind of drone, whereas DJI, you have to rely on their ecosystem of products. You have to have their remote, you have to have their goggles, whereas a lot of these things, these tiny whoops, you have a little bit more flexibility. Now, if you have the DJI system, you have to have the DJI goggles. So flying this NEO inside like a tiny whoop with the goggles, with the remote, it just isn't nearly as agile. Now, it does have that altitude hold, which is really pretty cool. But I just don't have that maneuverability that I do with that smaller drone. So I'm not going to get into super tight spaces. I'm going to be flying through loops. I'm not going to be racing with this guy. It's good for more cinematic kind of fun shots. Actually, this was a really fun drone to film the kids looking for eggs, because I could go up higher, I could point the camera down. That's not something you could do with a Meteor 75 or really any tiny whoop. So I do have control over this camera and the gimbal, which is really cool. So I can do more with this. Plus, you know, this is kind of cheating, but I could connect it to my joystick remote, the motion controller. I could connect it to a controller with a screen and fly it more like a cinematic drone. I can also connect this thing to nothing or my smartphone and fly it from that. It has these gesture modes on it. We can do orbits and dronies and up and aways, and this thing will follow you. So yeah, there's a whole lot more built into this. So it does more. Right, this is like a photography drone that you can kind of fly like a tiny whoop. I think the camera on this is better than the 04 Lite on my Meteor 75 Pro. So now the tiny whoop, this Beta FPV here, really kind of excels if you want to do racing or if you want to fly outside in acro mode, right? Acro mode, also known as manual mode. You can do flips and tricks and kind of really fun stuff, kind of push drones to their limits. Now, tiny whoops aren't the ideal drone for that, but they're absolutely better than the Neo. Sure, you can fly the Neo in manual mode and do some rolls and stuff, and there's an easy acro mode, but it's not the same. It's not as maneuverable. It's just a little bit too heavy, and it wasn't built for that. So that's where the tiny whoop shines, something you kind of need to think about when you're considering these two drones. So that is all stuff you have to keep in mind. It's really, what is the purpose of your flying? Do you want to capture just kind of some fun movements? You want really good quality? I think the Neo is probably what you want. If you want in tight spaces around people just for fun or maybe racing, then you probably want more of a traditional tiny whoop. Now, neither of these are going to be cheap. Now, you need DJI goggles that are compatible, and either way, you're going to need basically the same ones. Okay, so let's just take a look. What are DJI goggles going to cost me? Right, so I can get DJI goggles 3, $500. Or what are my other options? I think there is, the DJI goggles N3, which are $284, $288. So we're looking at, either way, if you want to fly DJI 04 system, you need one of those two sets of goggles. So $300 or $500. Yikes, that's expensive. Plus, you need a remote. Now, to fly the Neo, this is the only option, the DJI remote controller, $183. Or I suppose you could use the motion controller, which is $98. I've got one of those. That's a little different. It's super fun, super intuitive. So that's another option. So we're looking at $300, $400 for the Neo. But if we want some batteries, how about Neo batteries? I think they're like $40. Neo battery. Yikes. Yeah, $40 for a battery. Man. So not cheap. Well, okay. So now let's talk about this guy here. Let's get some 1S batteries. And we need a BT 2.0. All right. So looks like that's not... These work. These 450, so we can get 4 for 35 from Beta FPV. I'm using their lavas. Lavas are better. So we have lots of different options. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 for 25. These are the ones I like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 for 30. So, not free, but certainly cheaper. And then I need a remote controller. I'm using this Radiomaster GX12. Let's just look at some Radiomaster prices. You can use pretty much any. The Boxer is a great radio. That's $200. 184. This is what I'm using. $200. The Pocket is $80. The Pocket's actually a really nice radio. Something that I think I would recommend to beginners. So, either way, either direction you're going, it's going to be expensive. Now here is the upside. If you get one of these Radio Masters, you can fly pretty much any drone on it that uses ELRS, which is, well, pretty much anything they make now. So keep that in mind, and that allows you to do more things, more of these like drones that you see on my wall. Those are all going to be compatible with this remote here that I'm using, or one of these less expensive ones that I've already mentioned. All right, so I want to share a few final thoughts on both of these, starting with this, the Beta FPV Meteor75 Pro with 04. Maybe it wasn't really fair to this guy. It's such a different beast, and this is really only a 1S drone, meaning it's the least powerful of kind of this sort of option, right? You can get a 2S version of this. You can go Cinewhoop, which is kind of what the Neo is trying to be. So if you want something a little bit more powerful that can do a lot of these things in this form factor, I'd suggest a 2S version. That said, I really like this one because it isn't as powerful, meaning I can get by people, it's lighter, smaller gaps, things like that. Now, no, it isn't as great doing acro as, say, a 2S whoop would be, but I think it's good enough, and I'm really a big fan. If you want to see something a little more powerful, or a little bit smaller, or a little bit less expensive, there are lots of tiny whoop options. You can see I got some on my wall back there, lots of different versions of this thing. This might be my favorite drone to fly. But now when it comes to the Neo, I think this really excels for a lot of different things. I mean, it almost can do the things this can do. I mean, it can, right? And if you look at the video on this is absolutely better. It's a lot more stable, right? But that's because this is holding its altitude. It works with GPS. This is all you, right? Which is kind of what makes it fun. And when you throw on the goggles, it's a cool experience, but it's a different experience. And if you're used to flying traditional GPS drones, I think this is a great segue to something like this, or even something like some of those big guys hanging on my wall. So yeah, it's good, it's fun, it's not nearly as agile, it's a lot louder, it's a little bit heavier. No, it isn't heavy, right? It's 135 grams. So no, you don't have to register with the FAA. It checked all of the right boxes. But this is never going to be my favorite drone. It just doesn't do any of the things that I really want it to do, as well as a lot of the other quads I have, right? If I want really good photography, I'm not choosing this. If I want to fly around people, also still not my choice. If I want to fly indoors, no. I mean, I guess if I just want to do quick selfies for social media, maybe this would be my choice, but I think I'd still go with the Flip. It's a good drone. It's a really good drone. It just isn't the best at anything, but it does a little bit of everything. Maybe that's what really makes this the winner. I don't know. You get to choose which one you want. I'm not going to tell you which one you should spend your hard-earned cash. They're $200, both of them. You have to buy goggles. You have to have a remote. So at the end of the day, you make the choice that best fits your needs. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope this was helpful. Good luck, everyone, and happy flying.